Hi. So in this video, after a few weeks of experimenting with Debian in the VM, I'm finally going to be installing it on my actual laptop. So there's quite a few things that I'm going to try to cover in this video, so it might be quite a long one, but I hope it will be interesting and give some good information for someone who wants to install Debian on their laptop, or even more specifically, if you have a laptop from Tuxedo computers, which I do, and if you're wondering how an install of Debian on their computers will go, this video will also cover that. Specifically, I have the Tuxedo Stellaris 16 Generation 5 model, and I'll leave a link to that to their page on their website, which describes that laptop in the description below. So I have already done a lot of preparation besides the kind of the experiments that I did in my VM. So I already prepared the installation medium for this installation, and I did that by going to debian.org and by clicking download, and then you get this page. It's kind of like, for some reason, at least like to me, it's like always hard to see like where to click here. Like on Debian website, there's like a bunch of links and you have to read things carefully, but it's actually like this very first link that you have to download. This is the latest installer of Debian stable. And it's specifically net install, so it'll be downloading all the packages and stuff from the internet. So then once you have that file, that's an ISO file, you can click over here. It says that like basically it explains how it can be written on a USB stick, for example. And once you get to that page, you have this answer that describes how to write an ISO image to a USB flash drive. And then over here, basically, it gives you two options: is that either use the cp command to do it, or the dd command. So I did this one. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You just have to replace, you basically, what are you gonna do? Let me just like copy it to the terminal just to show what it's like. Basically what like IF stands for input file. You just kind of I'll just type like debian.iso to illustrate that, and then you'll have to find a device that corresponds to that. Like you have to basically insert your USB stick, and then you can run df-h, and it'll list all of the devices that are available, and you have to identify the USB stick amongst these devices. So like for example, let's say it was this one, and if that was the case, I would enter /dev/disk3. I actually haven't done this on the Mac. I did that on Linux, like on my on the Linux distro that came with my laptop. So, but pretty sure it should work fine. Just make sure that you don't mix up like which that you write to the correct device, basically, because you could lose some data if you run this command on something that is not the device you intended to write to. Then it'll just overwrite everything on that device. So or like if you are hesitant to use terminal for whatever reason, then you might want to Google other methods. There are like apps with graphical interfaces that do the same thing, but this is also okay as long as you're careful. But do be careful. Like just really check what you're doing, and everything should be okay. So that's that. I'm actually not going to be using a USB stick. I'm going to be using an SD card, this is just an SD card adapter for a micro SD card. So I have this SD card that is only 2 gigabytes in size, and it came with a sound recorder, like the Zoom H1 sound recorder, and so I'm gonna use that. I already tested it and it boots, so you can also use SD cards for this if you don't have a USB stick, which is like me. Yeah, I don't really have any need to buy one at the moment, so the SD card is gonna work just fine for this. Okay, so that's preparing the installation medium. Now, the reason why I wanted to have a checklist to go through. Let me just close the browser because my Mac is very, very slow, and the fewer things I have running right now, the better, because my video might be glitchy. I'm not sure if it actually is. Like, preview is glitching a bit. Hopefully the output wasn't too bad. Or the actual file wasn't too bad either. But basically, the reason why I wanted to first do it in the VM is basically because, in my experience, installing an OS can be a very long and complicated thing. And what tends to happen, at least for me, is when I start installing things, I think it's oh well, it's pretty straightforward. You just follow the instructions that you get in the installer, and everything is just super clear. And to an extent, that is true. But then there's a bunch of things that you didn't think ahead of. Maybe you forgot to I don't know, decide some things in advance that it's best to have ready when you are actually installing things, like deciding what password you're going to use, or stuff like that, or having your Wi-Fi password ready if you're going to be using Wi-Fi when installing it. It's just so that's why I made this checklist that you see on the screen right now, so that I can follow it basically, and make sure that I know what I need, basically, what I'm doing. I mean, I might still run into something that I didn't anticipate, but at least most of the things that I could think about ahead of time, I have done that. So, for example, I have this first section here, which just what the installer is going to be asking you for certain things, like host name, domain name, full name for the user, the username, user password, and also an encryption password if you're setting it up with encryption, which I'm going to be doing. And yeah, it's good to have that information. It's good to make these decisions ahead of time, which I already did, and I have that ready to go, so that I can just put in the right values right away. And yeah, I find that it's better to have it all ready to go, because otherwise then you spend the whole day because you get stuck at certain points where you need to fix something, or make some decision that you didn't think, you didn't anticipate, and then it just becomes very long and drawn out. And this way it's kind of it resolves that problem, at least to some extent. So also, if you have a Wi-Fi password, just have it ready. And yeah, this is just about basically there's a stage where if you have very large hard drives or SSDs, and you're going to be encrypting them, there's a step where the installer is going to be overwriting the entire disk with random data, which improves the quality of encryption, but it might also take very long time. And like, again, like if you haven't thought of it ahead of time, it's like you're gonna run into that step, and you will either like realize that you can cancel it or not realize, or like either way, like just like thinking about it when it's happening is like is not the best way to go, perhaps. And like if basically it's best to think like, well, do I really need to overwrite my disk with random data? Can I like just like this small reduction in the quality of encryption, is that really important? And you can like Google specific things, like in what cases it might matter, and when you can just skip it. Like I have basically 2 4 terabyte SSDs on my laptop, and I have a suspicion that it's gonna take ages for that process to finish. And if like I'm gonna just like take a look, and if it goes fairly quickly, then they're also like pretty fast SSDs. So, but I don't know, like since they're so large, I have no idea how fast it will go. If it will take hours, I'm just gonna cancel that because that's fine. Yeah, good to think about it ahead of time so that you're not like all like in doubt when you have to make that decision during the installation. So that's that. Let's see. So yeah, it's good to have your like installation medium ready to go, and then maybe do some things that like connect the laptop to an electrical power source, and like unplug all the other devices that might be connected to it, because it probably won't matter. But I mean, I saw it recommended that like unplug all external devices. There's probably like, I don't think there. Okay, like I really don't know like if there is a possibility of it messing something up, but it's just better to not have it there, even just for the plain reason of like if you forget like some external hard drive is plugged into your laptop and then you format it by accident during the installation, then you might lose some data. And it's just like better to not have anything plugged into it except for the power cable, which yeah, just like in case installation takes a long time and suddenly like you lose power in the middle of it, that's not good either. So it's good to kind of prepare for that as well. So let's see. I guess I'm gonna be moving on to installing it now. I'm going to be recording my laptop with my phone because I don't have a capture card, and yeah, that's kind of the only way I can do it at the moment, so that's what I'm going to be doing. Alright, so here's how my laptop looks right now. I have everything ready, like basically. So what am I doing? Let me take a look at my checklist so that I don't get lost. So I disconnected all of the devices and plugged it into the it's connected to an electrical power source. So now I'm gonna plug in the installation medium, which here it is, and I'm going to reboot it, and then I'm gonna press F7 repeatedly until the boot menu appears, and then I'll select the USB stick from there. So let's see, restart. All right, let's see. So what do I have here? I'm quite sure that this is my device. I wonder what Tuxedo and Tuxedo fallback are. I guess those must be the SSDs actually. Then you have the UEFI OS, and then my device, and then something called enter setup. I'm not gonna mess with any of this. I'm just gonna go ahead and boot up the Debian installer here, and here it is. So let me see. So I did this. I booted the installation medium. Now the next step is go to advanced options and export install. So if you haven't seen the installation video that I did in a when I was doing the same thing in a VM, you can check other videos in this series, and that the installation one is video number 2. So great, the installer has booted, everything is looking fine. It's nice to also that I did it already a couple of times actually, and like practice doing this in a VM, so that I'm not like all, just like doing it on the actual laptop for the first time, because that would like add to the stress basically, and then I might be prone to making more mistakes, which is not good. So another reason to have like this checklist ready and stuff. I guess I'm going to be going through a lot of these steps fairly quickly because they're quite self-explanatory. Yeah, let's see. So I'm still gonna be like looking at my checklist, so that I kind of recall what I was doing while doing this installation in the VM better than just like doing it from memory. So choose language. I'll leave this at English. Then I'll leave it at the United States as well, and this is fine as well. US UTF-8, and I don't need anything else here, so I'll just go ahead and press tab and then hit enter to continue. So the first menu entry, we're done with that. Next one, access software for a blind person using a braille display. We're gonna skip that. Next, configure the keyboard. I'll just keep it at American English. Next, detect and mount installation media. This pretty much runs by itself. Installation media detected. A drive has been found that contains Debian GNU Linux 12.1.0 bookworm. That's correct. Official AMD 64 net install with firmware and such. Looks good, so continue. Next step is load installer components from installation media. So that's just I don't have any, or like, yeah, that's just like, I'm not actually sure what this does, but I'm gonna click just press continue here. Yeah, I guess like just to install some extra things, but I haven't been doing that, so I'll just press press continue here. There we go. It's loading additional components, and now we'll get more items in the menu right after this step. So next, detect network hardware. So over here I should be able to connect to my Wi-Fi, hopefully. Or I guess that's the next step. This just runs automatically, but then configure the network. So let's see, configure the network. Waiting time 3 seconds for like waiting for network detection. Continue. All right. For some reason I had to do that twice, but I guess it's okay because I have access to my both wired and wireless connection. I'll use wireless for this installation. So let's do that. And okay, so I'll select my Wi-Fi network and let me get the credentials here. Alright, connection has succeeded. That's good. Now, auto configure networking, yes. Let's see. Waiting time for link detection. Okay, auto connection has succeeded, or auto configuration has succeeded. So I'll leave host name at default right now. I'm not really sure what to name this computer yet. Although it'd be cool to have some kind of interesting naming theme for various devices, but I'll just leave it at Debian for now. I'll leave the domain name blank as at default as well. Okay, so done with configuring the network. Next, set up users and passwords. Allow login as root. I will choose no, and I already went over the reasons why. If you haven't seen my installation video, maybe you could go check it out. But basically it's because this way my user will automatically get added into the sudoers list, and I won't have to set that up manually, and that way I can like run root commands from my normal user basically without having to log in as root. And if I ever want to have a root account, I can have it enabled at a later point. So no. Full name for the new user, Alex. Username for my account, Alex. Okay, the password for the new user. Okay, that is done. Now, the next step is configure the clock. Set the clock using NTP, yes. Server to use the default one. and I will set this to coordinated universal time. All right. Next step, detect disks. That runs automatically. Okay. Now partition disks. So now we're getting to the part that has to be done with great care, and there's quite a lot of steps as well. So let's see. So let's go into that part of the menu, partition disks. So partitioning method, I'm gonna use guided use entire disk and set up encrypted LVM, because that will set up the boot and the EFI partitions for us the way, like automatically, basically, so we don't have to do that manually. But then I'm going to also configure LVM manually when we're done with this guided part. So select disk to partition. So I have two disks. As you can see, both of them are, each one of them is 4 terabytes. So I'm going to select the first one, and that disk will be the one where EFI and boot partitions will reside, and also the rest of it will be just the main partition, basically. So let's do that. Oh, come on, just a sec. So next, all files in one partition, because we'll be configuring Btrfs volumes or sub-volumes for home and root later. So I'm not going to do the separate home partition at this step. That's going to be a Btrfs sub-volume instead. I've gone over this in my previous videos. I did one on I believe it was so the second video was like the installation one, and then I did another one, I think it was number 6, where I went over the Btrfs or like not Btrfs, but like this whole scheme and why I chose to use Btrfs. So if you haven't seen that, if you'd like to learn more about this, you can check out those videos. So right, over here, write changes to disks and configure LVM. Yes. Right, so this is now overwriting the disk with random data. That's what I said is this long wait will be. So I'll just like let it run for a minute, and if it doesn't get to 1%, I'll just cancel it, because it's not I'm not going to wait. Oh, it's already at 1%. So I don't know, like maybe if it's gonna go fairly quickly, I might just wait for it to finish. Let me see. All right, so it basically for the first 10 minutes or so it went really fast, was going really fast, but then like for the next 10 minutes, so I waited for about 20 minutes at this point. For the last 10 minutes it's been going very slowly, like from about 25% up to like the 29% that you can see on the screen right now. So my plan was, if it was going too slowly, I would cancel it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cancel this. I'm not sure what the reason is for it changing like the rate at which it is able to do this, but okay, so it seems to have cancelled out of that. Let me go back to my checklist. Okay, so now in the encryption passphrase, re-enter passphrase to verify. Okay, so next, enter volume group name. So that will be VG_main. Amount of volume group to use for guided partitioning, 4 terabytes. Yep, everything. I wonder why it doesn't show a bit less than that, because there's gonna be like a boot partition and an EFI partition, but I guess they're so small in relation to this number that it just rounds it up to 4 terabytes. Continue. Okay, so this is what we have. So here's the EFI system partition and the boot partition. That's what we wanted to get out of this guided step. Now, next we go to configure the logical volume manager. Write changes to disk and configure LVM. Yes. Now we're going to delete the logical volumes that it created, both the root and the swap one, because we're going to be creating a single logical volume for root, and for swap I'm going to be using a swap file instead of a swap partition, like I already explained in my other videos, so go ahead and check those out if you haven't. Let's see. So yes, at this point we're going to finish with this submenu. And now we're going to select the second SSD. Just checking if I'm doing everything correctly. Yes, looks okay, so I'll select this. So we're creating a new partition. Interesting, it's not exactly... So it already has a partition. Oh yeah, of course it does, because it already has a partition that came with my laptop. That's why it's different to what it says in my checklist. So just let me go back for a second and verify this, but it does make sense. Yes. So I am going to delete this partition first. So now we just have 4 terabytes of free space. And I guess, yes, I need to select this and create new empty partition on this device. Yes, so yeah, now I'm following my checklist again. Okay, so partition table type GPT. So okay, so now I need to select the free space and create a new partition. Keep the default size. Then use as. I will select do not use the partition because we're going to using it in LVM, and LVM will create its own thing there. I explained it in my installation video. Basically, for now, it's do not use the partition. We just need a partition. We don't need a file system there because we're going to be encrypting it. So if I create a file system, it'll just be overwritten. So there's no point in doing that. Right, use as, do not use the partition, and then done setting up the partition. Yes. Okay, so now configure encrypted volumes. So now we're going to encrypt that partition that we just created. The partition tables of the following devices are changed. Write changes to disk. Yes. Create encrypted volumes. Now we need to select the partition on the second SSD that we just created. So let's see. So this is this one. And we can also like identify it because we can see over here that it doesn't have a file system. It just shows the size. Yeah. So it's this one and it's also 4 terabytes. Yeah. Continue. So partition settings, yes, done setting up the partition. So we're not going to change anything here. We'll just leave it everything as it is. Yes. Done setting up the partition. Yeah. Write changes to disk and configure encrypted volumes. Yes. And we're not going to create any encrypted volumes yet. We're just going to finish here. Yes, so now really erase the data on such and such device, yes or no. Looks okay, yes, makes sense. Yes. Okay, so now it's going to the overriding thing again. I'm just gonna wait like a minute or two just to see how fast it goes, because I'm curious to compare it with the previous one. Alright, so I'm going to cancel out of this as well. This lasted until like 28% at a reasonably high speed, and then now it's slowed down again, so I'm just gonna cancel this. That's fine. Alright, so now I'm asked for the encryption passphrase again, because it's another partition that we're encrypting here. Repeating the or re-entering the passphrase. All right. Now we need to go to configure the logical volume manager again. Write the changes to disk and configure LVM. Yes. And now we're going to extend the volume group that we created before, the VG main volume group, and we're going to include this crypt that we created that we just created for the second SSD. So yeah, yes, continue. Write the changes to disk and configure LVM. Yes. Now we're going to create a logical volume in the volume group VG main, the only one that we have, and I'm going to call it LV_root. Continue. Logical volume size, I'll keep it at default to use all the available size. And finally, LVM configuration action is finished, so we're done here. So now we have, let's say, so now we have this logical volume of 8 terabytes minus like basically all the available space in both SSDs except for the EFI system partition and the boot partition, which take up just 1 gigabyte. So like only a fraction of that size, very small fraction. So so now I need to select this newly created logical volume VG main LV root volume, like volume group main logical volume root. So I'll do that, and I need to set it to use as Btrfs journaling file system. And I need to set the mount point to root. And done setting up the partition. Okay. Now we're done here pretty much. Let me just take a look and see if everything makes sense. We have 2 encrypted volumes. Then we have a logical volume of 8 terabytes. We have the ESP partition, the boot partition, and yeah, and these are just the encrypted partitions that correspond to these encrypted volumes. So this all looks good. So I'll finish partitioning and write changes to disk. Do you want to return to the partitioning menu? No. Write changes to disk? Yes. To disks? Yes. Alright, so now the next step is an even more manual step than we just did. Now we'll have to open the console to configure the Btrfs subvolumes. So to do that, we need to like before we go into the install the base system part, we need to do this other thing, this extra step. So we need to press Control Alt F2, Control Alt F2 to go to the console. Thankfully the font is quite large, so that's good. Press Enter to activate the console. Now we need to list the partitions and logical volumes with the df command. And here's all the stuff that we've created. Here's our vgmain lv root logical volume of 7.3. That's TB bytes, not terabytes. That's why the number is smaller. And yeah, the boot partition and the EFI partition. So now we need to unmount those one by one, starting with the deepest one, the EFI, then boot, then target. So umount / target / boot / EFI, and umount / target / boot, and then umount target. Okay. So now I'll DFH again, and they are unmounted. Let's see. So now I need to mount the root partition to the MNT directory and change directories to that MNT directory. So let's mount /dev /mapper /vgmain lv root. So this is this path. And mount it to MNT and cd MNT ls. So we have this this root fs Btrfs subvolume here, and we're going to rename it to just the @ symbol so that timeshift can work with it. So that's going to be mv add rootfs to add ls. So we have that that add subvolume, which is going to be the root subvolume. Now we need to create our home subvolume. So that's going to be btrfs btrfs subvolume create at home. Btrfs subvolume create home. Okay, create subvolume at home. So now if I ls, we have two of them. And let's see what's next. So now it's time to mount them to the appropriate locations so that the installer installs stuff on those Btrfs subvolumes. So so basically there's going to be this long command with several quite a few options, so I need to type this carefully. Mount -o rw comma no a time comma space underscore cache equals v2 comma compress equals zstd comma ssd comma discard equals async comma subvol equals at, and then we give it the device, which is dev mapper vg main lv root, and that should be mounted to target. So let me just check that to make sure that it's correct. All right, looks good, so I'm gonna hit enter. Now I'm going to where am I? Right, so now I need to create, so like if I just list the content of what I just mounted, these are the contents, and I need to create a home directory there so that I can mount the home subvolume to that mount point. So that's gonna be mkdir /target/home. Good. Now we're gonna run almost the same command. So I'm gonna go back in history, and it's gonna be at home here instead of just at, and the device is of course going to be different as well as the mount point. So it's gonna be dev, or no, sorry. So the device actually is going to be the same because both of those subvolumes are located on the same LVM logical volume, but the mount point is different. So let me just confirm that it's all correct. Yes, so subvolume is different, but dev mapper vg main lv root is the same, and target home is the mount point. So that's good. Now we need to mount back our boot and our EFI. So let's see. So yeah. So in my checklist, I have them listed as SDA2 and SDA1, but that's because what they were called in my VM. Here I have this NVMe and so on. So for boot, it's gonna be mount /dev/nvme 0 and 1p2 /target/boot. Let me just check, because I've never done this with these NVMe names. So so it is boot NVMe 0 and 1p2. NVMe 0 and 1p2. Okay, this looks okay. And finally the EFI. So that's going to be NVMe 0 and 1p1. NVMe 0 and 1p1 EFI. NVMe 0 and 1p1. Yes. Okay, so now we need to edit the fstab file. So I'll type nano /target/etc/fstab. And we are going to edit this line, and we're going to basically give it all the same options that we just typed in on the command line, so that subvolume can be mounted automatically upon boot using those options. So let me see. So name of the device, then mount point, then the file system btrfs, and then the options. So I'll delete this defaults part. Then I'll go rw, comma, no a time, comma, space underscore cache equals v2, comma, compress equals zstd, comma, ssd, comma, discard equals async, comma, actually I already have a comma here, and I just need to remove the rootfs and have the subvolume equals add. So let me just check that again. So it's rw, comma, no a time, comma, space underscore cache equals v2, compress equals zstd, comma, ssd, comma, discard equals async, comma, subvol equals add. Okay, so now I need to press Control K to cut this line, and then I'll paste it twice, and then I'll edit the second one for our home home subvolume. The mount point is going to be /home, and the subvolume will be at home. Oh gosh, I'm just like, just want to make sure I don't make a mistake. Really don't want to redo it. rw, no a time, space underscore cache equals v2, compress equals zstd, comma SSD, comma discard equals async, comma subval equals at. They only differ in their mount point and the subvolume option. Yeah, okay. So that looks okay to me. Okay, so now I'll press Control O to save. It says file name to write. I'm keeping the same one, of course. So enter and Control X to quit Nano. Okay, so now we're done with this console part. So I'm gonna press Control Alt F1. Control Alt F1 to get back to the installer. Okay, so almost there. So yeah, now install the base system. All right, so kernel to install the default one. Yes, and include all available drivers. All right, so next step, configure the package manager. Almost there. Use a network mirror. Yes, or yes? Use a network mirror, yes, of course. HTTP. I'll keep the default here. Debian archive mirror. The default one. HTTP proxy, I don't have one. Use non-free firmware, yes. Use non-free software, also yes. Enable source repositories in apt. I'll say no because I can enable them later if I need them. Okay, services to use, select all. That's what my checklist says, and yes, that makes sense. All of these things are good to have. Okay, so select and install software. Let's go. So, yes, no automatic updates, that's what I prefer. I'll just do it manually. Participate in the package usage survey. So yeah, I'll answer no here. And over here, I'm not going to install any desktop environments. I'll just install standard system utilities. Okay. All right. Select and install software is done. Now install the grub bootloader. That's where one of my previous installation attempts failed because I didn't mount the mounts properly in the console. But I'm pretty sure that this time it should be all good. So let's go there. Install the grub bootloader. Force grub installation to the EFI removable media path. No. Update and VRAM variables to automatically boot into Debian. Yes. Run OS prober automatically to detect and boot other OSs. No. Okay. So fingers crossed. Yeah, it's all good. All right. So now finish the installation. Is the system clock set to UTC? Yes. Please choose continue to reboot. So we're done. I'm pressing enter and then I'm removing my installation medium. Once the screen goes black. Removed it. And now we should be able to boot into a fresh install of Debian. Right, so it's asking me for the encryption password, so I'm gonna enter that. All right, it's asking me for the second time because there's two encrypted partitions. I'll set it up shortly. Yeah, I'll set it up in such a way just in a second that it won't have to ask me. I won't have to answer the password twice. All right, so it has booted. It's in a teeny tiny font that, oh man. Like I just noticed that the camera was a bit out of focus. Hopefully it didn't mess the footage too much. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pause and I'm going to offload some footage so that my phone doesn't run out of space, and I'll continue right after I'm done with that.